My friends, to the InObscuria podcast, a podcast where we exhume obscure rock and punk and metal, and we put them in one of three categories: the lost, the forgotten, or the should-have-beens. My name is Kevin Williams, and we are joined today by Uncle Sam himself, Mr. Robert Harrison.
Salute.
We want you. What's going on, man?
Oh, just sitting over here itching. I'm very itchy. I spent the weekend up in the woods of your home state, South Carolina, working on a sculpture on site. So that meant I was in the woods hanging out with a bunch of rocks and things, and that's where these little tiny bugs known as chiggers, tiny little red bugs, you can barely see them. They crawl up your socks and find all kinds of weird places to bite you, and then about 2 days later, you just want to peel your skin off. So
they usually like warm places, like the scrotal region.
Right. I've avoided that thing.
Well, that's good.
Gad. It's like the back of your
back
of your knee.
That is the worst.
Where your socks were tight, so around the top of your socks. They got me there.
Chiggers.
I had gloves because I was welding, so one on each wrist. Like they got down in the glove somehow. So
just sounds gross.
Yeah.
Chigger.
It's
chigger.
Yeah, it's a it's not contagious, thank God, but you do want to come home and burn your clothes just in case. You don't want to bring those in your house.
Being the awesome father that I am, I took my kids on a 3-mile hike with poison ivy on both sides of the trail the entire time. Don't touch that. Don't touch that. Don't touch that.
Did it jump out and grab them?
Well, by the
really aggressive poison ivy?
Well, by like a mile in, Winter, my youngest, is like, she's freaked out so bad. I'm like, okay, I didn't mean to freak out. I'm just saying don't touch it. It's like,
and the problem is half the time we misidentify it because there's a lot of plants that look like it, and out of an abundance of caution, you're like, I'm not touching this plant, and that one kind of looks like it, so I'm not going to touch that plant. And so you do kind of walk around with your hands in your pockets, afraid to touch anything in the woods these days because you just see poison ivy everywhere, even though it's not.
So it sounds like we both did the same thing. We spent 4th of July out in the wilderness.
In Mother Nature. It was nice. You were, doing the more traditional thing with your family, kayaking. I saw the pictures.
Yeah, we were kayaking. We did this hike. This was amazing. You got to do this. It's only like a 3-mile hike.
That's my kind of hike.
It's short, very short.
Short attention span hiking. That's me.
And you get to this waterfall. I forget what it's called. Something Shoals Falls. But we went there. You get to this waterfall, and this waterfall's been there so long that it's basically made this pool. This amazing cold water pool that you can just dive into. Ooh. And it starts off and it has these really, the rocks are not too slick. They're a little bit slick, but because of all this water pressure, from the waterfall, they're just really nice and rounded and easy on the feet. Feel good on the feet.
That's always nice.
And then you get in and it just gets really deep where the waterfall's, just been pummeling this mountaintop. And it's about 50 degrees, that water.
Even the summertime.
Oh, it was cold, man.
After a long hike?
I got in. My kids were giving me a hard time, and my wife was giving me a hard time. I'm like, you're not going to get in? Because these kids, of course, these like college-age guys are jumping literally off the top of the waterfall into the bottom, just being idiots.
Like we were in college, yes.
Yeah, like everybody is at that age. And they're giving me a hard time. My family's giving me a hard time because I'm the last one to get in. And now, mind you, they're all only up to their waist.
Yeah.
And they're giving me a hard time about getting in. And so I get in like, man, this is cold. They're like, well, you're going to get in, right? Like all the way. And I do. It almost took my breath away. It was that cold that it's like, I can't breathe.
This is how people drown. Hypothermia sets in pretty quick. No, this Florida man over here does not do the cold water.
I highly recommend it.
Up in the mountains.
Well, I highly recommend it. It was pretty amazing. Once you're in the water and you can't feel your body anymore, it's good. Once you're totally numb, it's like, this is great.
Comfortably numb.
Exactly.
In the water.
Exactly.
I don't know about that. We'll see.
Yeah, man. So that's what I got into. What else was going on? I know with you, there had to be something involving fire or flames or something.
Yeah, once again, very non-traditional 4th of July. So came back from the woods and we invited, 5 or 6 people over that are into blacksmithing and forging. And we forged on the 4th. We fired up the forge and had 3 or 4 anvils going with a power hammer.
Anvil!
And I mean, all those names, power hammer, anvil, forge. It's just a great
sounds like you had a
hobby.
heavy metal
It was
weekend.
heavy metal. We pounded heavy metal all weekend.
Man.
It was great. Very, very therapeutic.
You were right on cue for tonight. I got to tell you, you're getting close.
See, I knew. I worked this up into a frenzy and thought I'd just get it out in the podcast.
You were working the spirits, man.
Yes, we were.
Interesting.
Calling up some metal demons.
Wow. Well, after you pound an anvil, go listen to Pot of Thunder, Cobras and Fire, Growing Up Rock, the Slamfest podcast, Decibel Geek, Metal Up Your Podcast, The Hustle, The Dummy Room, Podcast Rock City, History Science Theater, State of Amorica, Rock Strikes 10, Potter Than Hell, Podkiss, The Kiss Room, I Love It Loudcast, Ages of Rock, The Synaptic Empire, and don't forget about Monty's Rockcast. Come visit us at InObscuria.com. Like us, share us, recommend us, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Go over to our little shop and buy a t-shirt or buy a mask or buy something. Something. Leave us some kind of review. Leave us something. Interact with us, people.
We want to know you're there.
We want to know what's going on.
Are you still alive? Let us know.
I'm still waiting on Soundman stories, too. There's got to be a lot of musicians out there that have Soundman stories. We talked about it last week. Mm-hmm. I know you got some.
And speaking of stories, before we go too much further, guess who called me Saturday morning?
The police.
No, I don't usually know.
The fire department.
Yeah. No, I was on my way to South Carolina and get a phone call from Australia.
Craig Elvin.
Yes.
Called you on Saturday morning.
Which it was late at night for him in Australia.
Oh, you got late night, Craig.
He was a couple of drinks into a late night, and we had a good conversation. It's the first time I talked to him one-on-one for a while. Yeah, we had a good time, so just wanted to give a shout out to him for being our biggest fan in Australia that we know of.
Did he say he was ready for the next episode? Because
I think I talked to him saying it's about time. You need to step it up.
Yeah, I mean, he gets one a year apparently because it takes him that long to put them together.
A lot of prep work, a lot of research.
Well, you heard the papers when we were talking. They were shuffling. There was a lot of shuffling going on.
Reams of papers that he was shuffling. So I think he's really excited about it. So Craig, keep doing that research. I expect nothing but the best.
I cannot wait for the Kenny G episode. It's going to be amazing.
How Kenny G went over in Australia. He was huge down there.
Huge down under.
Mm-hmm. AC/DC opened up for him.
I wish Craig could be here in August.
Oh,
because we got something going on. It's coming up really quickly. He would enjoy this. Craig, I wish you were here for this because there's just all sorts of people you need to know about. I'm talking about Rockin' Pod. What is that?
This August will rock as Rockin' Pod returns to Nashville. This annual convention brings together rock artists, fans, and podcasters for an unforgettable rock experience. Meet Billy Sheehan, Ron Keel, Ricky Rachtman, Mark Goodman, Matt Pinfield, Don Jameson of That Metal Show, drum legends Carmine Appice and Vinny Appice, along with current and former members of Winger, LA Guns, Accept, Roxy Blue, and more. Panels, signing sessions, and vinyl and memorabilia vendors, all available to you at Rockin' Pod. Music podcasters from all over North America will be appearing on site for live interviews, networking, and speaking sessions. Got a music podcast? Register and join us. Rockin' Pod Weekend kicks off with a pre-party concert featuring former Tesla guitarist Tommy Skio and his new band Resist and Bite. Plus, Ron Keel Acoustic, Rock United, and a rare hair set featuring many surprise guests. Rockin' Pod Weekend, August 6th through the 8th in Nashville, Tennessee. Tickets, VIP, podcaster registration, and discounted hotel rooms are available now at rockandpod.com. Rockin' Pod, brought to you by DBG Productions, Brad Lee Entertainment, and Incaptia.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. Was that better?
Like a wrestling intro.
That's what it sounded like.
Can you feel the burn?
Step into a Slim Jim. Oh, man, it's going to be so much fun. And guess what? The two of us, are actually going to sit down with several of these artists that were mentioned in this little commercial we just played. And we are not an interview show, so get ready for some really bad questions.
What's your favorite color, man?
Do you remember that time that you opened for Rush? That was fun.
Was it 82? Yeah, I think 82 minutes. Like where the question takes 5 minutes to get out. So in 1982. It was January and blah, blah, blah. So, I forgot what I was going to ask. Never mind.
So we'll have to see how that goes. Plus, we're going to be in a big expo hotel, big room, and going to be interviewing these folks in a big room with a lot of noise going on.
And adult beverages.
And adult beverages will be flowing like wine. The beer will be flowing like wine.
Oh, God. Man, I had tonight happy hour. Went across the street. We got a beer store. It's not a beer store. It's a growler store, I guess is the technical term. They had some really high gravity beer. One beer just about kicked my ass.
Really?
One, it was,
Did you get a growler?
No, but it was, I was kind of grunting, but there's no growling. I almost had to crawl home after one beer. It was like, wow, the difference between that and my normal IPA, Tropicalia, whatever, fruit beer that I drink. Yeah, that stuff will kick you in the butt. So maybe we get a couple of growlers to take with us to the Rockin'
We
Pod.
should, you know what? That's a great idea. We should just have growlers sitting on top of our table, and that's what we're drinking out of all weekend long.
Like, screw drinking out of a 40. That's for younger kids. We're bringing growlers to drink straight from the growler.
I like that idea. Let's go grab a couple of those.
Right, I think I got some downstairs.
Now, we just found out we are going to be right next to Mr. Brad Rustoven and his brother at Slamfest Podcast. They're going to be sitting right next to us.
Right next to us.
And then on the other side of us, we're going to have Joe Polo and I'm assuming Jody's going to be there, and Sonny Pooney. So we're going to have Podcast Rock City right next to us.
And that's where the party's going to be.
We're going to have some fun.
There.
We're going to have a lot of fun. So I cannot wait for this event. Now, we are sponsored. We're one of the only shows, I think, that has an individual sponsor for.
Not to brag or anything.
Not to brag, but
we're going to brag a little bit.
We're bragging. Yeah. And, given that you just talked to Craig, I don't know if they have this in Australia. But
I didn't even ask him that.
There might be a Vegemite flavor. I don't know.
I think a Vegemite in a can.
So maybe Underwood Vegemite. But I got to go ahead and play our sponsor ad. It's required. But again, you come to Nashville Rockin' Pod Expo and you sit down and talk to us. We are going to give you your very own.
All the kids go for my mom's sandwiches, and so does Dad, especially the deviled ham ones.
Underwood deviled ham.
My mom makes great sandwiches. This one's deviled ham.
Underwood deviled ham.
My mom always gives me meat sandwiches to keep me going. Like deviled ham.
It's all good ham and a pinch of spices. For good meat and good flavor, try the whole ham spread from Underwood.
That was, I'm hungry. I mean, you got to love a commercial that just makes you want to go downstairs to the pantry, not the fridge, because this is...
You don't have to, there's no refrigeration needed in
this.
It's
the food of the future from the past.
It is. It's good stuff. Yep. I cannot wait for everyone at the Rockin' Pod Expo to be absolutely hurling in the bathroom because they have eaten the deviled ham that they got from InObscuria.
Alcohol and deviled ham.
Ooh,
sounds like it goes great together.
Sounds good. Can't wait for it. Come out and see us, folks. Okay, so a few weeks ago, if you'll recall, I was digging in the old family crypt after returning from my first vacation. I like to space my vacations out about 2 weeks apart.
Yeah, I see a trend.
This is how I work.
Say word.
Yeah, so when I found the box of BJP recordings, which was Big Jack Pneumatic, if you remember, we had our Ghost Fest episode. You do remember. Awesome.
I remember the band. I mean,
okay. Yeah. You don't remember the episode. Okay, so episode 83, for if you want to go back a few. I also, at the same time, I found a box of old cassette tapes. Remember those?
Oh, yeah.
Now, did you?
I got nothing to play mine on right now.
You have some, though. You showed them to us.
Oh, yeah.
Now, in that mix of cassette tapes that you had, did you have any mixtapes like that people gave you or that you made yourself?
Well, duh, you.
Oh, I gave you tapes? I know I gave you CDs.
Yeah, but I think you already had these made and you were just like, I don't use these anymore. You might like this. But there's a couple of tapes that you made. But then right after that, it was a lot of mixed CDs, which broadened my horizons to this day. Introduced me to all kinds of cool bands.
Well, that's where it all started for me as well. So in this box, I found some that had cases, some that didn't, some that were labeled, and some that were ripped off. You used to reuse, put the tape over the top of it, and you could just keep dubbing over the top of stuff. If I got a band that I didn't like, after a couple of listens, I would just tape over the top of it and record over the cassette with my own stuff.
You talk about the tab at the top.
Tab at the top. Yeah,
you poke it in so you can't accidentally record over it.
Right.
But then when you want to record,
just a piece of tape over.
You got to put a piece of tape, and then if you press too hard, it goes through the tape.
Exactly. That was the first Napster. It was Tabster. So anyway, I found one that I knew right away. It took me back to my humble beginnings of just getting into music. And it's a black tape simply labeled, not in my handwriting. It says heavy metal. That's all it says. And I had not seen this tape in 20, maybe 30 years.
Ooh.
I thought I'd misplaced this. I actually thought I gave it back to my cousin. So my older cousin, in maybe around 86 or 87, 1986 or 1987, my cousin Sandy I believe he was in college or just getting out of college. He was, he probably graduated in 82, 83, somewhere around there. And he heard me at my grandmother's with my boombox. We all used to hang out in this one room where all the grandkids had to hang out. Mm-hmm. And I had my boombox on, and I was listening to probably Metallica or something like that, Metal Church, something that was new at that time. And I had a very limited collection at this point because I was that little skateboard kid just starting to get into music, punk and metal. But it was very, slim selection that I had. And so he heard this, and he goes, "Come out in my car, man. Come out." And he opens the glove box, and he's got all these tapes in there, and there's some mixed tapes. And then he hands me one. He's like, "All right, you can borrow this one because you're going to like this." And he hands me Scorpions Worldwide Live. It was their live cassette. And he's like, "You can borrow this one." And let's see. And he's going through. Oh, this one. He's like, "My friend in high school gave this tape to me. You have to give this back to me. This is like solid gold." He's like, "My friend was really into heavy metal, and he had all this stuff that you'll never hear anywhere else." Mm-hmm. And mind you, I didn't have MTV, right? So in
1987?
No, I didn't have.
Oh, wow.
We didn't have MTV. In fact, I don't think they have it to this day at my parents' house, unless you're, on DirecTV or something.
Right.
I think their local cable, which is what we had growing up, never had MTV.
Wow, I feel Metropolitan. We got it in 83, I think.
Yeah, so you can imagine the only way that I heard stuff, my other grandparents, my dad's parents, when we would go there, they had MTV on their cable, and I would stay up late nights and watch MTV. That's about the only time I got to see it. But this particular grandparents, my mom's...
more country.
They were out in the country, and they didn't have anything. And so you can imagine my knowledge of what's going on is basically based on friends that I had. Uh-huh. Trading tapes, that's what you did back then. You made tapes, you traded them. Like Brandon Steele, he used to give me all sorts of stuff that he had, and we'd just go back and forth and dub and all that kind of things. And then magazines. I was starting to get into like Thrasher Mag and Rip and all these music magazines that were out at the time because there was no internet, kids. This is the way you did it.
No, you had to get your smut from the convenience store down the street. You couldn't get it online.
And you only got the mainstream stuff for the most part. That's all you knew about, unless you went to the ads in the very back, and then you could read the names of these bands that you never heard of before, but you had no idea who they were or what they sounded like. But anyway, he hands me this tape, and I said, "Okay, awesome." And it just says heavy metal. And basically what was on this was a true time capsule of heavy metal from the early 80s. Mm-hmm. And if we've talked about it a little bit, but if you remember, there was a time before the hair bands kind of took over and before thrash really even got started, where this thing was a new phenomenon, especially in the States. It was called heavy metal. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of a broad category of bands, but it was just heavy metal before you got into all this other stuff. And in the UK, they had new wave of British heavy metal, but we didn't really have that here. Basically, we got this mix of European and American and Canadian metal, and that's what we had. When I listened to the tape, it still worked, and it made me think of the US Festival. And we've talked about the US Festival a little bit.
What's his name from? Wozniak?
Yeah, so Memorial Day weekend 1983 in San Bernardino, California, Steve Wozniak, who was one of the founders of Apple, put on this US Festival because I guess the 70s was the me generation. Yeah. So he was trying to do the US. That's why it's called the US Festival. And on day 2, they had something that was brand new that broke a lot of bands into the mainstream in America. It was called Heavy Metal Day. And it basically catapulted the genre as well as a lot of what were somewhat underground bands into the mainstream in America. It was Quiet Riot right before they had their big hits. Motley Crue, who would only, I think they had just put out or were putting out Shout Out the Devil. So they hadn't gotten huge yet. Ozzy Osbourne, people knew. Judas Priest, who was just really breaking at that time as well. Triumph.
And I remember just recently watching that performance.
For Triumph?
Yeah, and being blown away.
Awesome.
I mean, 3 guys up there making a hell of a racket.
Yeah, if you don't know Triumph, they're really good. Really good Canadian group. The Scorpions, and then closing it out was Van Halen. Now, people knew Van Halen. People sort of knew the Scorpions, but again, the Scorpions hadn't had Rock You Like a Hurricane yet. So
no, not
that's
their big
really what
radio hits.
That's what made them huge in the States. But this is right around the time when all these bands got into true mainstream, everybody knows their names, success. And that's kind of the music that I got on this tape. Mm-hmm. So we are going to call this episode 85, Excavation Heavy Metal Mixtape 82-83. We were only covering those bands that were popular before the hair bands kind of made them go away or made their careers go down a little bit.
Yeah, and some of them adapted, just like
some did.
People do. I mean,
a lot didn't.
Scorpions adapted. They stayed. They had a few hits through the 80s. I can't think of anybody else right now, but there's a few more that kind of rode that hair metal wave.
Yeah, now the big ones pretty much maintained, but a lot of bands we're going to be talking about today were bands that had momentum, just like the new wave of British heavy metal bands. And the only way they could get from where they were to something bigger was if they were to change or try to change their sound to be flavor of the day Bon Jovi,
right?
Which was just starting to happen, right? You had Motley Crue at the US Festival. Rat had put their album out, so all those Sunset Strip bands were just sort of starting to break a little bit. But before that were these bands, which were kind of the bridge between the 70s. And the 80s hair bands.
All right.
So that's where we're going to go. Let's get into the very first band. And I love this band's name. They were on this tape. I thought, ooh, that sounds like something I shouldn't be listening to. Ooh. And the band's name is Heavy Pettin.
Ooh, scandalous.
Ooh.
You were not allowed to do that.
I don't even know if I knew what that was. It just sounded bad.
They're in a movie.
Yeah.
And you know what? To this day, every time I hear that, I think of somebody patting you on the head, like pat, 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 pat.
Which is not what it means.
That's a good girl. That's a good girl. Like, no, don't do that. That's bad, too.
Yeah, so Heavy Pettin, I had never even heard of this band. This was the first time I ever heard of it. Like I said, they sounded scandalous, but they're a band from Scotland. They're from Glasgow, and they formed in 81, and the name of the band came from a UFO album and song. So they kind of stole that, and they sort of sound a little bit like that. They're a little bit 70s AOR, arena rock, mixed in with some people put them in Nawabum, so new wave of British heavy metal. They're kind of in there. They sound a little bit like UFO and a little bit like AC/DC to me.
Wow.
But we'll see what you say.
Quite the street cred.
They formed in 81, and their first album came out in 83, so they didn't take them too long to get signed and get a producer by the name of Mr. Brian May, or I should say Sir Brian May.
To you and I.
Yes, so Brian May produced their first album called Lettin Loose that came out in 1983, and we're going to play a song from that album. Now, people that have heard of this band probably know the second album more, which was probably the most popular in the States. It was called Rock Ain't Dead. That came out in 85, and the group disbanded in 88 before the third album even came out in 89. They recorded a third album. I think what happened was their management tried to get them on that Are you aware of what Eurovision is?
I've heard the name, and I can't recall what that is. Is it like it's like a American's Got Talent?
Yeah,
Idol?
Before that was
Americans
like an idol
Idols.
thing. Yeah, so it's a competition, a song competition. So this is a band that already has albums out, and their management entered a song that didn't represent who they were as a band into the Eurovision contest and completely turned people off of this band, so much so that they broke up before their third album even came out.
Fucking man.
Crazy, right? All for the ching, trying to get some money.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to get something.
Huge market over there.
But we're going to play a little Heavy Pettin. This is a song that was on the tape called Shout It Out from Lettin Loose, 1983.
That was some straight ahead rock and roll right there.
Does it take you back to the 80s?
God, yeah. So many different elements popping into my head. Early Def Leppard, pre-Mutt Lang.
Very
before
much
he got
so.
a hold
I was
of
thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't call them out earlier, but yeah, that's very Def Leppard.
But with a healthier Vince Neil singing for Def Leppard. Much better shape. But then it had the straight kind of real simple rhythm that was just driven home a la Motorhead, where it just starts and just keeps pounding that rhythm through the whole song. You know, not a lot of tempo changes or fluctuations, but all of that good stuff I love the early Motorhead, the older Def Leppard. I mean, I like all that stuff. And you got to think, you know, as we always talk about, you know, they should have been huge, or why weren't they bigger? The name, it just keeps sticking with me as something that's just uncomfortable and weird. Even, you know, I mean, today, obviously, with the sensitivities and the wokeness of everything.
Well, they were trying to shock.
Yeah, but it wasn't
have that
shocking.
shock value.
It wasn't. They should have just called themselves second base.
Right.
Or even third base. But the heavy petting is like, you don't want to put that on your jacket.
Yeah.
Imagine, you know, your jeans jacket.
And it's heavy Pettin. There's no G at the end.
Well, that's even worse. Guys, come on. So who knows? I mean, there's a lot of things happening. A lot of it's just luck of the draw, but they put out some damn good music. That's for sure.
And you'll hear with a lot of these bands, there's not a lot, or at least to my ears, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of extra in these recordings. Like, it was very much so set up, play live, get it down, get it good, get a good sound, good tone, and go.
That started
not
really
a lot
making
of
its appearance
mid-'80s,
where all of a sudden
underlying synth, or you'd have multiple layers of guitars,
multiple back vocals or shouts or something it just got crazy. I mean, it's just the way it goes.
And I think you're going to hear in all the guitar tones very much an amp type of guitar tone, right?
Yeah.
You put a Marshall or something like that on 11.
And that's what it's going to sound
And that's what you're going to get. And it's not completely overdriven like a lot of the stuff we get today. It's truly the sound of those tubes warming up, and that's what you're getting on tape.
It's just glorious.
And like in that song, I mean, that's what that was. It was, you know, an amp. They didn't take it maybe all the way, but it's the area where I like it. Yeah, exactly.
When they take it all the way, it becomes cheesy. Cheese pop.
Before it gets too fuzz.
Yeah.
Too.
And the reason I got tinnitus today was that very reason, trying to find that sound.
So another band, we'll go to song number 2 here, and another band that I read on the label, and I went, oh, I remember seeing something in Rip Magazine or Hit Parader about this band. Because those were, again, that's what I had. I didn't have MTV, so that was my reference. And I had seen like this one little snippet, and it wasn't good. It wasn't a good image for me. It was like of the drummer wearing this really cheesy, like V-shaped spandex.
Oh yeah, the wrestler
that basically goes all the way down to just right above his junk,
uncomfortably low cut.
And he's standing like this, like with his arms outreached, holding the sticks. Obviously, he had just done a drum solo or something. And
you throw your sticks to the crowd.
And he's got his hands up. And honest to God, it looks like he's got nothing down there. Like it may have been the way he was standing, but it looks like a female wearing a bikini.
Yeah, as a guy, that's really unfortunate.
It was disturbing. Like, ooh, I'm going to stay away from that band. I don't know what that's all about. But that was my only image of this band.
It was a tragic accident. He was in Vietnam. And
I'm sure it was just the way he stood up.
It was a grenade.
He had a self-tuck. He didn't realize.
So it was an unfortunate self-tuck.
Yeah, I think it was just the way he stood up from the old drum throne and self-tucked himself. But it made a lasting impression on me, obviously.
Yeah.
And that's all I knew of this band.
As an impressionable young man.
I was like, what is that?
Where's his junk?
That's not right.
You're supposed to have junk, sir.
You look like people draw superheroes. There's nothing going on.
I'm too afraid to draw the junk.
That's weird. Anyway, the band I'm talking about is actually really cool once I got into them. And this song, I thought the title was so cheesy even then, but the song is so good. And this band, they are so cheesy that they're amazingly good. That's how cheesy this band is. And
I'm talking about far enough.
I'm talking about a Canadian band. They're still around, I believe, to this day, called Helix. You ever heard of Helix?
No.
Okay. Well, they had a minor hit with the song I'm going to play, but it was on the tape, and it was just such a good song. The name of the song is Heavy Metal Love. And all of these bands, as heavy metal was breaking into the mainstream, they really had to get the word heavy metal into the song title if they could.
To let you know what they were.
Because it was, again, your exposure was limited. Mm-hmm. So you had to just throw it out there so people knew. Hit them in the face with it. We're heavy metal. This is called Heavy Metal Love. That's the name of the song.
Heavy metal dessert.
Now, this band was actually formed in Canada in 1974, so they had been doing the bar circuit for a long time, kind of like Twisted Sister, where they played and played and played and played.
And then they were an overnight success.
And then all of a sudden they do well. So they released 2 independent albums in 79 and 81, which is at the time that they realized, we need to change our image or else we're just going to continue being this bar band. Mm-hmm. And they went into that heavy metal image and helped establish that kind of early spandex look that a lot of the bands had and adopted throughout the 80s. So
Motley Crue had the biker jackets and stuff like that, but the earlier bands, the spandex, they guessed wrong.
Yeah, Rat had a whole lot of spandex on. I remember Dokken did it. Yeah, a lot of the hair bands did it, but these are the bands that started it. The Scorpions did a lot. Even Maiden. I remember Steve Harris. He used to wear spandex.
Really? I'd have to go look that one up.
Well, go look at the live album, Live After Death. There's a picture of him jumping with some stripy spandex pants on.
Nice.
Which, no way. Okay.
Form fitting.
Anyway, this band finally gets signed to Capitol Records, and they had been rejected 3 times, but third time's a charm. Or 4 times a charm, I guess, for them. And in 1983, they released No Rest for the Wicked. They had a video with this song Heavy Metal Love, and then the rest is kind of history for them. They released another album in 84, and they sold over 100,000 copies in Canada, over 400,000 internationally.
That's half the people in Canada own that album.
Yeah, I know, it's a lot. And so they had some success. I heard this band after I heard this tape. My cousin gave me this tape. I heard this band, and then I didn't realize that they were also on the cassette that my sister had. The first place that I ever heard Dio was on the Iron Eagle soundtrack, which she owned. We talked about that. Well, this band has a song on there too, and I just didn't realize it. I didn't focus on it. So you
were blinded by Dio.
So exactly. Dio was just so damn good that I couldn't pay attention to anything else. But they were on that album as well. And this cassette tape, there were also some heavy hitters on this that we're not going to play from. The Scorpions were on it.
Right.
Dio was on it. So I heard the first time I ever heard Holy Diver was on this cassette tape. And I think Ozzy or something. But, we're only playing the ones that were just a little left of center here. So Helix ended up with 14 full lengths from 79 to 2019. Obviously, their biggest success was in that 83 to 87 period because the hair bands kind of killed Helix a little bit too. This is another one of those bands that didn't quite make the transition to the level of the Motley Crue Rat status. We're going to play a little Heavy Metal Love. Get ready.
She thinks your time is like a ring in the bell. She's mine.
that drummer was playing with a lot of balls. I mean, his drumming had a lot of balls. I mean,
played his balls off.
Played his ball. Yeah, at some point he apparently did, according to your photograph. God, that had everything. Check off all the boxes. It's a really good song. The guitar sound, I love it. The vocals, once again, I hate to say it again, but right in the Vince Neil school of singing a good rock song.
Little raps to it. So.
But I'm just trying to think of they had everything they needed. I can't listen to that song and think if they had only sounded like this or changed this. It's like I don't understand why that didn't take off. And
in Canada they did great. I mean, like I said, they're still out there. Brian Vollmer's still singing. I think the rest of the band probably changed out, comes and goes. But it's a great band. They just never, unless you're really into metal, you don't really know them. Yeah. Or if you're from Canadian, maybe.
But in this case, the name, good metal name, Helix.
That's a great metal name.
They
had a great logo with like
geometry looking.
Kind of geometrical with axe or sword looking tips, like all good logos should have for heavy metal. Some sort of impaling object should be part of your logo.
Some type of danger.
and the actual cover for this album is No Rest for the Wicked, and it's the devil and Jamie's sitting on the side of his bed looking like he hasn't gotten any sleep.
Oh, I don't know. That's good stuff. I hate that wasn't bigger because I think there was room for that.
Yeah. Very 80s, and you can just see it's in that same area of just get in there, cut it, get it good, and move on to the next song.
And there were other bands that kind of made that transition into the hair metal that weren't from the Sunset Strip. I mean, most were, but not all of them.
Oh, there were some good Canadian hair metal bands as well. But.
So that's why I just can't put my finger on that one. There's always something that I think maybe if they changed this one thing, but no, that seems like it should have just hit just like the rest of them.
Who knows? Well, next we're going to talk about the very first Japanese metal band I ever heard. And I had no idea they were Japanese at the time because it was a mixtape. How's I supposed to know? Now, if you listen closely, maybe I should have picked that out, but the vocals are so drenched in reverb and echo that I didn't really know what was going on.
And if you'd seen photos back in the 80s, for those of you who weren't around then, one of the fashion trends was the rising sun Japanese symbol.
Yeah, that's right.
Was
Karate Kid.
Was it the Karate Kid that did that?
No, it was early 80s. It was just a Japanese fascination with
the rising sun logo.
Giant robots and
but everybody was wearing that. I mean, Van Halen, David
everybody
Roth.
Had the rising sun.
Yeah, and so I don't know. Maybe that was just you would have fit right in with it.
Maybe, but I didn't see a picture of them. I didn't realize this band was Japanese, and I did also only found out later, like, oh, this is kind of a deep cut for this person to put this on this tape at this time in '83. So this is the band Loudness, and they're the first Japanese metal act to sign a major label deal in the U.S., and most U.S. metal fans know those U.S. released albums, Thunder in the East through Soldier of Fortune, so 85 through 89. Now, this tape was made in 83, so this guy who put this together actually had an import album that he put on this tape, which is pretty cool for the time because, again, that's how this stuff got around back then. It was through tape trading. So it's kind of cool. Now, this is the band, if you say, you like any Japanese metal, this is the band that people think of. This was kind of the biggest known name. And they've had 28 full-length albums to date. They're still around. Akira Takasaki is a bona fide guitar god. He's a shredder. He's known in all the guitar magazines since the 80s, since he first emerged. He's just one of those guys like your George Lynch's or your Eddies. They became more well-known, although their time in the U.S. was short. It was just 85 through 89, basically. But they've continued on, and they had several albums released in Japan before those albums in the U.S., and this is going to be a track from an album that was released in 1982 called Devil Soldier, and the song we're going to play is Angel Dust, and we'll talk about it when we get back, but see if you would have picked it out. My young ears did not.
I'm gonna stand up, hey,
right, that was weird.
I always find that
The ending
it's
was
best
just-
to put a drum solo at the end that you just fade
Just
out.
fade out. That was odd, but yeah, I don't blame you for not knowing the nationality of that band or the singer because it was just so far up in the stratosphere.
Like, I had no idea what he was saying.
I mean, it was Geddy Lee on helium. It was way up there, but
And the Scorpions were on this tape too, and I remember thinking, "Oh, those guys must be from somewhere else." But
Yeah.
I didn't think that about these guys.
Klaus Meine,
Klaus.
you can kind of hear a little bit of I
Yeah.
can't do a German accent, but yeah, so I don't blame you for that, but good God, being able to sing that high. Now, in this one, I can see it not getting a lot of mainstream extended play in the States.
Yeah, this wasn't even released in the
Yeah,
States.
because
so
that
this
was a little
not
more extreme, even compared to some of the stuff that came out. But you got to give them to the Queen breakdown, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like the Bohemian Rhapsody style breakdown, then right back into the song again.
This song
It was really good.
This song totally reminds me of Cutting the Grass, because that's when I listened to this tape the most with my crappy Sony Walkman with those crappy headphones that came with it.
Never stayed on.
With like they didn't fit your head really well, and they had the foam covers on them. Right? That you'd always
it would
lose
break
one.
down.
You
Oh,
just
yeah.
lose one. You never lost both of them. And
It would get hot and sweaty, and the foam would loosen up and fall off.
So a push mower is really loud, and then I would have this cranked up as high as it would go. So it's already distorted.
Yeah.
Just in general, the music, and then you distort it to the max. And I don't know why. I was just killing my ears listening to not only a very loud machine, but also
I
listening
do that to this day. I'm thankfully upgraded to a nice riding mower, but my Bluetooth headphones don't go that loud, or
Right.
I'm that deaf that I can barely make out the songs. But still, I'd rather have songs that.
But you still want to have
I
something
want to have
on.
something versus because
Yeah.
I got a lot of grass to mow. It takes a while. But anyway, by the way, was it self-propelled or you had to push that thing?
No, you had to push this thing.
Oh, you poor
Yeah,
kid!
no, and
Didn't he have a self-propelled push mower?
yeah, we had an acre too. So it was.
Oh my God! You mowed an acre with a push mower?
Yeah, man, it took all day long.
Oh, yeah.
Seriously, it was an all-day
In the
event.
summertime.
And I would listen to this tape over and over. And I'm surprised
That's
this thing
child
plays.
abuse. Do you know anybody that makes their kid mow
No.
an acre of grass
Oh,
with
no.
a push mower
Hell
these days? You would get reported.
It builds character, though.
Oh yeah, you got a house full of character that you've built there. But yeah, so getting back to the band, I don't know how many songs I could listen to back of theirs. Like that was interesting. but
Maybe an
I-
acquired taste.
I couldn't listen to an
Loudness.
album.
Yeah. Well, they're still going, and you could dig into them if you wanted. 28 albums. You can check it out. Lots of different singers, though.
Lots of lawns to mow.
They have lots of different
Oh, they
singers, so
do?
lots of different sounds to
Oh,
them.
okay.
Now, the first
Because the
6
music
albums
wasn't
or so.
bad. It was just that the operatic singing was.
But think
wow.
about what Akira was playing, that lead. That's 1982, and they don't even have international fame yet. And that's how he sounded. I mean, it was almost kind of Malmsteen-esque before Malmsteen was a household name as well. So he was kind of in that same area of
He
just
broke some ground for sure.
badassery.
Yep.
Is that was the area, badassery. So let's talk about another badass guitarist. And I had read about this guy, but I didn't know he had a band of his own. Because again, this was 86-ish, 87 when I got this tape. And I had read about a band called Whitesnake, and they had guitarists at that time. One was named Vivian Campbell, and the other guitarist was named Adrian Vandenberg. And on this tape, it said Vandenberg was the name of the band. And like, oh, well, it had to be the same guy, right? Makes sense. Made sense to me. And it was. It was the Dutch-American hard rock band. They were originally called Teaser. They formed in 81, and they quickly got a deal, and Adrian Vandenberg is the guitarist, so they decided just to change the name from Teaser to Vandenberg. They recorded at Jimmy Page's old studio, so they had some financing behind them. And in 83, when they put out their first single, it was fairly okay. In the U.S., it went to number 39, which is pretty good on the Hot 100. But most people don't really know Vandenberg. They only had 3 albums, I believe. Yeah, 3 albums, 81, 85. And then just last year, in 2020, they released Vandenberg 2020.
Oh,
Their 4th album, and it was in one of my shows that I do by myself. It was in my best of 2020. I love the album they put out last year. It was really good, but we're going to go all the way back to the beginning. And with their first couple of tours, they opened for Kiss and Ozzy, touring across the states. There's no reason they shouldn't have been a little bit bigger, but just didn't work out that way.
Yeah.
And once Adrian Vandenberg got the call from David Coverdale, he was like, all right, we're done.
See you
I'm
guys.
going to go work for these guys. And he actually, I don't believe he ever recorded with Whitesnake.
He was just the touring guitarist.
When Whitesnake had their biggest success, John Sykes had done all the guitar work, and Coverdale basically fired the entire band and got...
They weren't good looking enough.
Yeah, just got a group of ringers to take out on tour, and they toured that self-titled album that was so huge. I think they toured it for like 2 years nonstop, and Vandenberg was the guitarist. And then I think the next Whitesnake album that came out, it was Steve Vai playing guitar on it. So
hey, I would have taken that gig too.
Maybe Vandenberg's on it too. I don't really recall. I'm sure somebody's shouting at their phone right now going, "You're an idiot." Because, hey, Mr. Obscure guy, you don't know Whitesnake? But yeah, pretty much. So we're going to play some Vandenberg. This is from the first album, Vandenberg, that came out in 1982, hence why it's on this tape. This is called Lost in a City.
I'd never heard that song, but that is the 80s that I remember.
Right. I love it. I love that song.
Songs on MTV, 2 o'clock in the morning. Like you said, when you're supposed to be sleeping, you're staying up all night watching MTV.
Yeah, it's the stuff that was coming on, man. And
yeah, I spliced into the cable in our attic and ran it.
Eating a bowl of Pac-Man cereal.
Yeah, I ran cable down into my bedroom, totally spliced it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because
nice.
they would have known if I was staying up late watching it in the main room.
Right.
They would have heard it, but I spliced it, and then I wired up headphones to my little black and white TV so I could listen to it odd hours of the night. But yeah, that and I love learning things and on this podcast, and this is one of the things where I had the timeline backwards. I'd always thought that he had joined Whitesnake and then parlayed that into his own band.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't realize he was already his own band and then went into Whitesnake.
Yeah, it was after 3 albums even.
Yeah,
so
they'd been around a while.
So the first one, again, came out in 82, and then just in succession year after year, and then finally he got the call for the 87 Whitesnake album.
Yeah, and that story, I love the story for it being interesting, but it just pisses me off when I think of, the guys that wrote the music getting fired.
Oh, John Sykes, man.
We talked about that in another episode a long time ago.
He's such a good guitarist.
Yeah.
For
Can you
him not
imagine
to reap the benefit of that time of what happened.
One of the biggest tours.
Oh, yeah.
It was huge.
He went on from that and formed Blue Murder,
but not the same.
That was a flop as well. So love that band, but that was a flop compared to what Whitesnake was doing.
What he wrote, what he helped create.
Yeah, basically he did create
all
the
those
sound
riffs,
of that album.
Still of the Night, that guitar riff is one of the best guitar riffs out there.
John Sykes,
still love it to this day.
So I just realized while we were playing this is the third time we have played Vandenberg on the podcast.
Really?
So
not the same 3 songs though.
No, so this is Vandenberg, and then I mentioned that I picked them as one of my top 2020 albums.
Yeah.
So I played them on that episode.
When was that episode?
That was the first episode in January 1.
Oh, okay. I was still hungover.
That was me by myself.
Oh, okay.
That's why
freezing.
That's why you don't remember it.
Oh, okay.
And you probably didn't listen to it.
I didn't know it was out there. How am I supposed to listen to these things if I don't even know they exist? You get out. Let me talk to the marketing department.
Well, the third one,
we'll have a talk.
The first time we played him actually was his side project that after the Whitesnake thing ended, Rudy Sarzo and Tommy Aldridge started a band called Manic Eden, and we played Manic Eden on one of our hairband episodes.
Okay.
So,
what was their big power ballad? I know they had a big power ballad.
For
Vandenberg. Do you remember? Because that's what I remember on MTV.
Those are the ones I don't listen to.
I know, but that's why I keep gravitating to that, because that's what my reference point to MTV were, these power ballads, because that's what got played in heavy rotation.
And what I do is I literally do not put the power ballads into my mix. So when I take my old CDs and I rip them and listen, I take out the power ballads. So I don't know. I don't remember.
And yet you managed to get married despite
this
that.
This is true.
That's amazing.
Now here's something interesting I looked up while we were, because I know people were shouting at their phone, Vandenberg was on Slip of the Tongue. Well, here's what it says. It says personnel for Slip of the Tongue, which is the album that came out after the big 87 self-titled album for Whitesnake. It says that the band was David Coverdale, Steve Vai, Rudy Sarzo, Tommy Aldridge, and Adrian Vandenberg. But it says that Vandenberg was credited but not recorded. So Steve did all of the guitars on the album.
Why would they credit him but not?
I have no idea.
Somebody has to explain
Unless
that
Coverdale was already done with him, but he wanted to maintain the look of having 2 guitarists. I don't know.
Or
I don't know.
Maybe he wrote some of it, but it was never recorded. And Coverdale was like, "Oh, play that thing that."
Yeah, says not recorded.
Adrian. Huh.
So I assume that to mean that all of the work was done by Steve Vai. Which Adrian Vandenberg is a badass guitarist on his own.
Yeah.
So I mean, Steve Vai is maybe a little bit better.
Still a hell of a lineup. Rudy Sarzo, Steve Vai.
Oh my God. Yeah, but he would go on from that and do Manic Eden, which we played with Rudy and Tommy Aldridge. Tommy Aldridge is the man who still looks as old as he did when he was in Black Oak, Arkansas. He looks exactly the same today. He looks like
don't age.
He's always looked like an 80-year-old man. Like he has the body of a 20-year-old, and then his face looks like he's 80.
And he was Mick Mars now back then.
Yeah, pretty much. Amazing. But we're not talking about Tommy Aldridge. No, we're going to continue on this journey with this tape that I had. And here's probably the biggest name on this tape that I had kind of heard of and seen something from. Probably the biggest one we're going to play today, I should say. Dio and Scorpions, like I said, and Ozzy were on the tape as well, but we're obviously not playing them. But the band I'm talking about is a band called Krokus. Oh, come on now. You can't laugh at Krokus.
Oh,
the best Swiss metal band ever.
Best cover of Sweet.
Yes, that was one of their big hits.
Ballroom Blitz.
Sure was.
I thought, first of all, first time I heard it, I didn't know it was a cover. And I'm just thinking, what in the ever-living flying hell is this song? It didn't fit in with all the other hair
What
bands.
was happening at the time, I know.
It would play it on like Headbangers Ball.
Right.
And I'm like, what? Why are you, this is the silliest, stupidest song.
Well, it is true. You hate glam rock, so that makes sense that you didn't like it.
It goes back to, don't sully my name with it.
Yes, you hate 70s glam, so I get it now.
Some of it.
So
Pedoglam is what I
Yes, pedophilia glam. So I was aware of this band back in 86, 87 timeframe when I got this tape. I knew the name because I had seen... I used to go to record stores and I would always look, at what's new. That's how you knew that something was new. They had a what's new
special
section.
area right as you walked in.
And I remember seeing this kind of scary looking cover with this like devilish looking guy grinning on it and really cool logo text with, sharp edges. So you knew it was, it was Krokus. And the name of the album was Alive and Screaming. And I thought, that's got to be like a
It
thrash.
checks off all the boxes.
That has to be a thrash band because it just looks so thrash, that cover. That cover has nothing to do with what Krokus are because Krokus are a Swiss band that has some pretty good success, but they basically are an AC/DC ripoff.
Yes.
Is what they are. I mean, just call a spade, but that's what they are. I mean, they've been around forever. They've put out a ton of great albums. I own all of them, but they're pretty much an AC/DC band.
Except.
It's similar to Accept, right? So you've got Germans and Swiss and Australians all kind of creating the
we
same
all love
thing.
the AC/DC.
We love AC/DC. Yes. Everybody should. So, and that's kind of their story. So they were, early on, they were a prog band. They started in 1975, and they were a prog rock band. And when they saw AC/DC in the late 70s, they went, I like that better. And they completely changed their
3-minute
music.
songs? Yes, please.
Got a new singer that could pull off that kind of vocal. And they were off to the races. And that's when they got signed. In 1980, they put out an album called Metal Rendezvous. And in Switzerland, it went 4 times platinum, which means they sold 20 copies. And no, I'm just kidding. I don't know how big Switzerland is, but it's not huge.
It's like Rhode Island.
But that's cool, man. They went really big, and even that's when they started entering the U.S. charts. So their first several albums were U.S. hits. Number 201 for the first album. In 81, they came out with Hardware. That went to number 103 in the U.S. and charted in the U.K. And then their third album, big album, I should say, was One Vice at a Time. That came out in 1982, and that's where the song that I heard, the first song I ever heard, came from, and the song is called To the Top that we're going to play. But they went on through 83. They had an album in 83, 84, and I believe that must have been it was either Headhunter or The Blitz where they had it must have been The Blitz, Ballroom Blitz was on that one because that went to number 31 in the U.S. 2 albums, 83 and 84, they went gold in the U.S. So Krokus did fairly well. They did really well until about 88, and then it was the hair bands completely overtook them. They couldn't compete with, what was going on. So they still are around. They're still touring, and it's just a force. This Swiss band, like a watch, man. They just keep ticking.
Going.
See what I did there?
Yeah, tick.
Yeah, it's Swiss.
That was Timex too.
Sorry,
it's American watch.
But they were heavily influenced by the Swiss.
Okay,
let's listen to the Top.
Just to tease me.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that song. That's a great song. That sound by 86, 87 was pushing, 12, 13, 14 years old. And so there's no way they could have kept going. They didn't change. They stayed true to who they were.
However, AC/DC has put out the same album.
There was room for one.
There was room for one. There's only one on that pedestal.
Right. Now, and they did Thunderstruck. Was that 88? They did Thunderstruck? So
that was
90? Okay, yeah, but still, late in the game, they were huge, and that was very relevant, but they were AC/DC.
Exactly.
They weren't one of the
they
10
weren't a
bands
band
that
trying
sound,
to be AC/DC.
Yeah, but that sound was antiquated by the late 80s.
His voice definitely had that Bon Scott quality to it. It was pretty good.
And the guitars were pretty straightforward, chung, 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 a lot of eighth notes going on.
I love the breakdown bridge, though. That's very non-AC/DC.
No, that's true. They wouldn't have had that.
That was not and I don't think of this band as a copy band. They took that sound and kind of adopted it.
It always sounded 1981.
Yeah.
Whenever they were playing, it was 1981. And you can only stretch that out for so long.
Right. Yeah, I would assume that they based everything from late 70s era of AC/DC. That was their blueprint, and they applied that to every single album.
No,
now, they've got a little glitzier. They tried to, obviously, when they had a hit.
Yeah, the Ballroom Blitz.
Ballroom Blitz. They tried to get a little glitzier, and that was kind of their downfall. They really should have stuck in their wheelhouse, and maybe that would have
AC/DC. They did not try to glitz it up.
Yeah.
They stuck with what they were good at this whole time.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe
to this day, I mean, good God, we're still #1 album. last year?
Last year, 2020, during the pandemic.
During the freaking pandemic.
They have a #1 album.
Well, there wasn't a lot of competition, but
this
still.
Is true.
Freaking #1 album.
And this band, I mentioned they were still around. Now, they did announce in 2019, just like Kiss, they announced that they were doing their farewell tour.
Decade farewell tour.
Which got interrupted by COVID, so they are still trying to finish their farewell tour.
Yeah, Elton John came through 2 years ago in his farewell tour, and he's hitting Atlanta again this fall. Can you? I mean, people pay $300 or $400 for that farewell ticket, and all of a sudden he comes around again. They're like, "Oh, screw you!"
Well, I may not go see Kiss the next time they're coming because I kind of already in my head I had seen them for the last time.
Yeah,
unless I go to New York.
Metallica just announced they're coming in November.
Ooh, I'd like to go see that. It's been a while since I've seen Metallica.
Mercedes-Benz Arena.
Ooh, nice. Indoor.
Or outdoor, depending on the weather.
Well, this is true. They just open it up.
Open it up. It's a little flip-top lid. So who knows? We got some talking to do.
That'd be fun. I saw another band that we've played that are coming that I definitely want to go see. The Who.
The Who? The Who? The Who?
The Who?
The what?
Huh?
That's how it's actually pronounced. And my goal is the Who?
Yeah, so we might be going to see them as well.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about a band that confused me at the time because I thought the person who had put this tape together had missed one of the letters or missed one of the words, and he just wrote.
By the way, Captain Ryan needs to be notified that we're
about
going.
The Huh?
Yeah, the Huh? Make sure he knows.
Okay, I'm just going to text him. Huh?
That's right. Yeah. Oh, grunt time.
Yeah, so this band's name was on the label or on the card. The J card is what they called it.
Oh, that's right.
It was called a J card.
It looked like a J.
It looked like a J.
And you could only get so much info in those tiny little cards.
They left the word quiet off at the beginning because it just said riot. Now, at that time, I'm 86, 87. What do I know?
I'm looking at your shirt right now.
How about that?
Fire Down Under.
Yeah. So I thought it was Quiet Riot. It's not Quiet Riot.
It's just Riot.
And this band was around kind of before Quiet Riot. They were called Riot, a New York band. So Quiet Riot are from Sunset Strip, Randy Rhoads' original band, right?
Oh, that's right. Yep.
But this band formed in 1975. Now, I don't know exactly when Quiet Riot formed, but somewhere around there as well.
Yeah,
but
they've been around a long time.
This band had been putting out albums before Quiet Riot did, as far as having some success. But they're an American heavy metal band, again, from New York City, and I had never heard of them other than, again, I thought it was, he just got lazy and didn't put quiet in front of it. But it's a killer band, and knowing now what I know about music, I would have really thought this was a Nawabam band. I would have told you this was, these guys were friends and hung out with Judas Priest on the weekends. That's what they sounded like. And they're American, so they probably could have done better had they been in the UK, but they were an American band putting out that kind of blue-collar meat and potatoes Nawabam-style music in New York, which, when you think about it, kind of works, but, in New York at that time, it was all punk rock.
Yeah.
And not Nawabam, because it wouldn't have been called Nawabam if it were. I can't think of what it would have been called, but it would have been called something else.
Yeah.
But anyway, this band also, I'm going to need you to go look this up while we're listening to this song. Right. This band also has possibly the worst album covers covers I have ever seen, and I mean a ton of them.
Siri, who has the worst album covers?
I found this on the web.
Oh, you meant like actually.
Is it a picture of Riot?
50 of the worst album covers ever.
Okay, we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
See if Riot is on there. Iron Maiden had Eddie, right? And Megadeth had Vic Rattlehead. You know, they had these icons, these art.
Vic Rattlehead?
Yeah, they had these cool skeleton mummy type of icons that were really badass. Well, Riot thought it would be cool to have a baby seal head on a man's body as your mascot. And it's really disturbing and just very bad.
Oh,
and they kept
Riot.
using it over and over.
Number 12.
Number 12. There you go.
This is a different one. This is the Wolf album.
A wolf album.
Yeah, Riot. Fire Down Under. It says Wolf.
It's not a wolf. It's a baby seal. That's not it. No, that's not it.
So they have more than one horrible album cover.
I think you're looking at maybe an image that's not associated with that particular write-up.
Oh, you mean they might have just pulled the wrong image in.
Yeah, because
all right, let me look.
It's a baby seal on
it. Says Riot Fire Down Under.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I didn't scroll far enough.
There
Right below
you go.
that.
There you
so
go.
they have 2 albums on the list of horrible album covers. Uh-huh. And so, the Riot, I'm looking at the baby seal thing right now with a mustache or something going on.
They use that almost their entire career.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, pretty bad idea.
No.
You would think after they saw the first time, like, oh, well, that was a bad idea. Let's not do that again.
And then right below that is Death Corpse Metal Tit.
Oh, I love old Death Corp Metal Tit. My favorite.
Next episode. Anyway.
Next episode. So this band, again, they were putting out New Album-style music in the States. They had their early tours opening for Molly Hatchet, AC/DC, Sammy Hagar.
Molly Hatchet?
Yep.
Wow.
They were on Capitol first, and then they were on Elektra. So their first 4 albums, they're on those major labels. And then for 1983, they just weren't cutting it. And so in 1983, they had an independent release. And that's what was on this tape that I got. It's from their independent release called Born in America. And this album pretty much broke them.
Bruce Springsteen totally stole that.
Not break them in a good way.
Yeah,
Like, this was it.
To crumble
they went
them.
broke.
Crumbled to the ground.
And they did end up coming back around in the late 80s, but they completely reinvented themselves as a power metal band. So they went the Maiden route. So they took basically the New Album approach of, okay, now we're going to do power metal, and they've done that ever since.
About 8 years too late.
A lot of people know this band. Obviously, I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. Just don't look at their album covers because it's completely bad and disturbing. Now, so my confusion actually was true confusion for folks in 83 as well. So that's when Quiet Riot broke to the mainstream. When they put out this independent album called Born in America, they put a disclaimer on the back explaining that they were not Quiet Riot. They were a band Riot from New York. They had to put a disclaimer on their album.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah. So I wasn't the only idiot. Okay. 16 full lengths to date. They've been around since 1977 as far as albums coming out. Their founder and guitarist, Mark Reel, died in 2012, and the band, a version of the band, reformed as Riot 5. Now, I don't know if they go as Riot 5 or Riot V. I'm assuming it's 5.
But it's more plausible,
V.
yeah.
And they've continued forward since
Are there
then.
5 of them in the band?
I could be wrong. Somebody's shouting at their phone again. Oh, well, who cares? We're going to play Riot heavy. I told you got to put it in the song title. If you want people to know what you play in 1983, you better spell it out. So
Heavy
this
Metal
is Riot.
Salad.
This is Heavy Metal Machine.
Or that.
From Born in America.
Racing my motor. Come
Blackie Lawless?
Kind of sounds like him, right?
Really similar. Very
sounds a little like Dubrow,
waspy,
too.
yeah.
Like, I wouldn't...
Somewhere
I could
in there.
see where somebody went, oh, is that quite right? Or,
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it wasn't their big hits,
Right.
their fourth or fifth song into the album that most people don't know.
I could see why they had to put a disclaimer on it.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate. It's like, once again, The Verve came out at the same time, another band called The Verve Pipe. Back in the 90s.
Right, I remember that.
It's such an odd name, but yet right at the same time, they're sitting there going, son of a bitch! You're kidding me? That's my name!
There's another Verve?
Verve? Like, what are the odds?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's, once again, love it, love it, love it. That's good stuff.
It is great stuff. And you should go back and listen to their 70s stuff. So I think this would be in your wheelhouse, actually, because you're such a Motorhead fan. So
Yeah,
I think if you dig back,
does
you
resonate with me.
really dig this band. And it's unfortunate. They just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
And that's why Wasp, the reason I thought of that was because Wasp struck me as one of those bands that is very similar to Motorhead in the sense that they just come right out of the gate and start kicking the nuts, punching the face, just beating the crap out of you, and they don't stop until the end of the song.
They were one of my early bands I was really into as Wasp. In fact, the first concert shirt, it wasn't a true concert shirt because I bought it at a record shop, but I couldn't go to concerts. I was like 15 and I bought a Wasp shirt because I thought it was so cool. It had a skull on it and it had a honeycomb in the eyes where the wasp are making their nest, and there was blood dripping.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It said Wasp, it had the dots.
Their concerts seemed like a really good chance of getting protested by some church.
Oh, especially back then.
Yeah, because it just seems like, of all the metal bands and stuff, that would have been a target for people. Just listening to some footage. I've never seen them live, but just listening to footage of the concerts.
I've seen them. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they were throwing raw meat into the crowd at one point. So,
yeah, stories like that I'm just like, oh, okay, we're going to protest you now.
Not sure you could get away with that today, but maybe. But it was, as I was listening to that.
Ham.
You can throw deviled ham, though. Knock somebody in the head with a can.
That would hurt. I got thrown out of Tasty World for throwing Jolly Ranchers back at it was Halloween, so the band had thrown Jolly Ranchers.
You were throwing them back?
Yeah, I was throwing them back, and I just had better aim than the lead singer.
I don't like these.
I think I nailed him between the eyes, and that's when we were drinking Mickey's, and I started levitating.
Why don't you explain to our folks listening what Mickey's is, actually?
Oh, my God. It's a malt liquor, which I did not know that.
One malt liquor kicker.
And the bottle looks like a hand grenade. I'm not lying. It just is the shape of a hand grenade, which is appropriate. It's a warning. It's telling you, be careful with this beer because it goes down
now,
fast.
Is that the Green Hornet? Mickey's Green Hornet?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
But we were you and I and... no, I don't. You weren't there.
I wasn't there.
No, you weren't there. This was Halloween 2000.
Is this when you drank your contacts too?
No, I drank somebody else's contacts.
Oh, drank somebody else's
contacts. That was somebody else's contacts. They left them on the sink. So, and that was the night I almost got my ass kicked by a lesbian for making out with her girlfriend, not knowing that this was going. I mean, talk about a night of debauchery, getting thrown out of a bar, almost getting ass kicked.
Okay, when Halloween comes around, we're going to need this entire story from top to bottom,
just to give the
Cliff Notes
Cliff
version.
Notes, yes. Yeah. Couldn't think of the word Cliff Notes. Cliff's Notes.
Cliff's.
It's the technical.
It's his.
Sorry, it's his notes. So, yeah, I don't know. But, yeah, I had better aim than the lead singer. That's what got me thrown out of the bar because I nailed him right in the head with the Jolly Rancher.
Did he announce it over the mic? Throw that guy out of here.
He turned to the security, apparently, and pointed at me, and I wasn't paying attention. I got thrown out. So,
all right, tangent here.
Yeah.
When we were in a band, we had absolutely no power to tell security to do anything.
No.
I never remember anybody from any security at any bar we ever played who did anything for us.
I got threatened more than once. You put a guy with a smart mouth with a microphone,
right.
There were hecklers and
but there was
drunk dumbasses.
There was no get them out of here. Nobody's gonna do shit for us. They're not even listening.
We got no respect for that. They looked at me like, "Dude, deal with it yourself. You got yourself into this.
Yeah.
Get yourself.
You're the one
out.
on stage, Mr. Microphone."
Exactly. So yeah, I got myself into most of the situations. There was very rarely a situation where it was unprovoked. Let's just say that.
So thinking back to the Riot song, in all of these songs that we've played, it really makes me think. Not only was I young, but it was a more innocent time in general. Because I was thinking about, I don't think you could get away with the lyrics and the themes that these guys are singing about and writing about today.
Come on.
Maybe you could.
How many songs about Christine 16 or she's only 17? How fast would you be run out of town writing a song about that? Much less the other stuff that just came up in here. I mean,
and I'm not saying there's not a lot of really dumb pop music out there today, but I still, just the way that these songs come across, it's very nostalgic, but I don't think it would go over today.
No, not at all.
It would come across kind of like the Darkness did when they came out, whereas, is this a joke? Is it for real?
Right.
Is it somewhere in the middle?
Laugh, or do we buy your album?
Yeah. And of course, we bought the album.
We bought the album, yes.
And have seen them live. Moving on, I have one more for you. And I had actually seen I'm trying to get my timeline right here. So I heard of this band on the tape. I didn't know what they looked like until maybe a year later when I saw them in one of the magazines. And I saw a picture of this band. You're going to have to look this up. In makeup and hockey, football, and baseball pads, like gear, on the cover of their album. So the band I'm talking about is a band called Raven.
Well, Twisted Sister did something like that. He had shoulder pads or something like that.
This band, I don't know. When I saw their picture, I'm like, oh, that's the band. I like that song on that tape, but yeah, I won't be buying that. It was like too much for me then. So look at the Raven, 1986. Their album is called The Pack Is Back. Look at the cover of that masterpiece. And then we'll go back to Raven. But they're an English Nawabam band. They were formed in 1974 by the Gallagher brothers. Gallagher brothers.
Oh.
So I wondered.
Different Gallagher.
Well, I don't know. So I wondered first, did they hate watermelons? I don't know. And then second, how did they make the transition to Oasis?
I was going to say Noel and Liam.
Maybe this was
which
the
album,
older brother.
Which album did you say look up?
The Pack Is Back.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, so a lot of watermelon smashing. A lot. Oh.
It's bad. It's so bad.
Whoa.
In 1986, that
Rocky
comes up.
Horror Picture Show meets Drag Queen meets cod pieces.
Yeah,
Lots of cod pieces.
Hockey helmet or something.
Don't know what that is?
Not really sure what that's all
helmet?
about.
It's kind of a goalie.
The drummer wore a helmet and pads and stuff. So
wow. Okay.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, that's in my mind now. Thank you.
So yeah. So I knew this one song, and then I saw that and went, okay, I won't be getting any more of that. But going back to it nowadays, so when they started off, again, they formed in the 70s, and by the time they were making a couple albums in the early 80s, they were really one of the Nawabam bands that influenced thrash. You know, there was Angel Witch was one we talked about on a previous episode, and then there's Raven. And Raven is actually also the band that took Metallica out on their first tour. So the name of the tour was Kill 'Em All for One. It was Raven and Metallica. So Raven had All for One out in 1983. Metallica had Kill 'Em All out, and they did this big tour, and that was the first Metallica tour. So this is a big band in thrash history because they not only influenced a lot of thrash musicians of the early years, but also they took Metallica out, kind of earned their spot. They also spent all of their early years opening for Blizzard of Oz, which was Ozzy's band before at first they were called Blizzard of Oz, and then they just went with his name. By the time they actually put the album out, they toured with Motorhead, Whitesnake, Iron Maiden. They were keeping good company. And
had some fun.
Yeah, and this band in 84, so they put out all these great early albums, big influence, Nawabam, and then they did exactly what all those Nawabam bands that failed did. They went, we got to get some bigger success. We got to follow the trends. And they moved to New York City in 1984, and they got signed to a major label, and they put out a series of declining albums. And the one you just looked at is one of those that was on the decline for them, where they got ridiculous. And then by the 90s, they kind of got back to being heavy, and they were touring with the bands that they influenced. So they toured with Testament and Hammerfall, which is a power metal band, Udo, Diamond Head, and guess who they toured with in Germany?
Scorpions.
Our favorite pirate metal band, Running Wild.
That's right.
Arr! 14 full-length albums from this band from 81 to 20. They put out an album last year. And they actually even showed up for the very first Rockin' Pod Expo in Nashville. They happened to be playing Nashville that weekend, and they came to Rockin' Pod. Raven were there.
That'd be fun.
They were selling their album at the Rockin' Pod, so that's kind of cool. So I'm going to play the song that was on this cassette tape that I got. This is called, again, you got to announce it. What music do you play?
Heavy Metal Oil Change.
This is Mind Over Metal.
Don't have no choice. Standing to attention, waiting for his master's voice. Coward is the cry, but they're screaming from the rear. Don't try to stop them now, just get for hell right out here. Mind over metal. Mind over metal. The darkness falls, a mighty war begins to fill the air.
Yeah, you think they had an influence on a very young Dave Mustaine?
I was just going to say the same thing. It sounds like Dave.
Dave, what is he? Oh,
He's talking like this.
Yeah. Which was one step away from Randy Savage.
Step into a Slim Jim, Dave.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't hear as much Metallica in that as I do Megadeth.
Totally. And at this point, Dave was in the band. So
yeah.
And then the other one was Angel Witch, which he was really into. So you take Angel Witch and Raven and you kind of get Megadeth.
Yeah. But that's kind of cool to see their influences. I mean, they are usually listed as the influence for most bands. And so they grew up at some point. They were listening to music at some point just like everybody else. So
they came from somewhere.
Yeah.
So that's what I got for you today, man. Hope you put on a headband, maybe cut your sleeves off your shirt.
Yes.
Put some 501s on.
Button fly.
Button fly. Yeah, so 80s, man.
Yeah,
but
always good to make a trip back there.
Exactly. And this tape, I mean, it's unreal thinking now how easy it is to find whatever you want whenever you want. Back then, it wasn't like that. And if you got a tape like this one, I held on to this for probably 6 months, and I honestly thought I gave it back to him. But maybe I made a copy and gave him the copy.
Oh, that's slick.
So I don't really remember, but
I don't think he remembered giving it to you. So
but anyway, he was older than me, so he probably didn't care anyway. Yeah. It was more of a high school memory for him. This was like introducing me to a whole world of music that still is infecting my brain to this day. So this was the beginning.
It was.
And with that, this is the end. Later.
Nice. Bye. What is that? What? I was just sitting there and you were all quiet. What are you doing?
Ronnie James D.O.G.